Well, it's not the Negev of Israel or the Dead Sea area region of Israel, but it's awfully close. We've left Monterey and the Santa Cruz area of California and are making our way back to Colorado via the southern route, which takes us smack dab through the Mojave Desert and Death Valley. It's going to be here across Southern California and Nevada that we pick up our Bible study in the book of John, chapter 4, and continue our thoughts as we drive.
Good morning. We're continuing our study this morning out of the book of Matthew 11:21 through 24. The words of Jesus. Woe to you, Chorazin! Woe to you, Bethsaida! For if the mighty works done in you had been done in Tyre and Sidon, they would have repented long ago in sackcloth and ashes. But I tell you, it will be more bearable on the day of judgment for Tyre and Sidon than for you. And you, Capernaum, will you be exalted to heaven? You will be brought down to Hades. For if the mighty works done in you had been done in Sodom, it would have remained until this day. But I tell you that it will be more tolerable on the day of judgment for the land of Sodom than for you.
Well, our devotional scripture reading and thoughts coming to us concerning the story of the nobleman and his encounter with Jesus in Cana had resulted in a man, probably a Gentile, for we find that Jesus is often complimentary of individuals from that region who had tremendous faith in him, being of Gentile origin. And this man finally receives word that his son had recovered and that the recovery had happened at the exact time that Jesus had said it would. It gives us a tremendous insight into faith and this man's faith. And we saw, first of all, that his faith was exhibited in a belief without seeing any of the results. He acted immediately and required no questions being answered, no details being filled in, simply believing a promise that his son would recover. And we discovered that those are the elements on our part of faith, but that they're really built upon our willingness to believe a promise, and particularly the one who makes us that promise. Nothing more is said about him and his son other than the fact that he believes, his family believes, and there's a tremendous working in their heart as a result of what has occurred. But from the reading we had in Matthew, it becomes clear that over the course of just a few more years, the things that Jesus did in and around the region of Galilee, he continued to do, and yet there was no belief on the part of the people living in that region. They saw what he had done, they heard his words, and yet they were unwilling to accept the most important promise, and that was the promise that he was the promise. He was the promised deliverer. He was the promised Messiah. And their inability to believe the initial promise that he was who he said he was and that he had come to be their deliverer was unreceived by them. And as a result, they would face tremendous condemnation because they knew who he was. They had seen the things that he had accomplished, and so their accountability, what would be the result of the consequences of their unbelief would be great, because they had seen and witnessed all that Jesus had done in that region. And Jesus says, if what had been done among you had been done in other regions, even Gentile regions, they would have repented, they would have turned and come to faith. We understand how important then a life of faith is, and a belief in the unseen, a willingness to respond without all of our questions answered, a willingness to base our hope upon a promise and the one who gives us that promise, and even more importantly, the promise of the promise, which is Jesus, who has come to redeem us and to give his life for us. And the nation of Israel as a whole rejected that promise. They rejected him as the promise, and there were great consequences. And I think even to this day, and what's happening in the nation of Israel, the consequences of rejecting their Messiah and what that has brought in upon them over these years, we're even seeing in the news today. And what we want to do as we spend a little time in Colorado and get ready to return back to Texas is to begin to think ourselves again about what God's plans and purposes for Israel are, what his plan was originally, what his plan is today, and really what we believe his plan in the future for this group of individuals who had rejected him in his first coming. And so stay tuned with us as we start thinking about what we would like to do as we get back to Texas. We spent over 2 years in our Bible studies at the church discovering God's plan for the nation of Israel, and I'd like to unpack that a little bit more as we get ready to head back into Texas and think about where we're going with our biblical worldview. What does the Bible tell us about God's plan for Israel then? What does God tell us about his plan for Israel now? And what does he tell us about his plan for Israel yet in the future? So stay tuned. That's where we're headed as we're heading across the Mojave Desert and on our way into the Colorado Rockies in a couple of days. We got about 20 hours of driving to do in the next 2 days, and we'll hopefully arrive in Colorado and enjoy that time there as well. Thank you. Have a great day.
Remember to hit the like button on this video if you like it, subscribe to us on YouTube, or follow us on Facebook. Also share with a friend, and have a blessed day.